Beethoven was a pianist, and he was a virtuoso pianist, but Beethoven was also a very skilled violinist. He studied with a couple of very notable violinists in Vienna. So when he was writing for violin and piano, he was writing for two instruments that he knew particularly well. What's particularly interesting about Beethoven's 10 sonatas for violin and piano is that if you track the progression from the first sonata to the 10th, the relationship between the two instruments has changed altogether. The first sonata is much more in line with what Mozart had in mind when he wrote his sonatas for this combination of instruments. Mozart's sonatas are actually published as sonatas for piano with the accompaniment of a violin. By the time we get to the fifth sonata, the Spring Sonata, the partners are basically equals. Keep in mind that at this time, the concept of a violin recital did not exist. Sonatas for violin and piano, more often than not, were performed by amateurs in the comfort of their own home. They had no TV, they had no radio. Most people played one instrument or another, or perhaps several instruments. So publishers made a lot of their money from selling these works to amateurs. What Beethoven did takes the idea of what an amateur might be able to accomplish and totally moves it into a professional territory. Most of the Spring Sonata is easily playable by violinists who don't have a great deal of pyrotechnics at their disposal. However, the scherzo movement is very difficult rhythmically. This is not a piece that can be easily sight-read, and in fact, it requires a unity between violin and piano that would have required quite a bit of rehearsal to get correct. Beethoven's ninth violin sonata, the Kreutzer Sonata, represents a point of departure for Beethoven. This work is conceived on a much larger scale than anything Beethoven had written for this combination of instruments before. It clocks in at about 40 minutes. This music is devilishly hard. Violinists today spend a great deal of time practicing it, and absolutely both performers are confronted with equal difficulties. The work had actually been dedicated to George Bridgetower, the violinist who premiered this work, and it was written at a very, very fast pace. In fact, Beethoven sent his manuscript to the copyist the morning of its premiere. So when the work was premiered, George Bridgetower was sight-reading the part. When you hear this sonata, it's almost impossible to believe that someone can sight-read a part like this. It would have been so much more difficult than anything else written during its time. So George Bridgetower would have had to have been a major virtuoso to be able to pull this off. The story of the premiere was that after the concert, Beethoven and Bridgetower were eating and drinking, and Bridgetower said something that Beethoven took offense to, and Beethoven decided to remove the dedication and instead dedicated it to the French violin virtuoso Rudolph Kreutzer, who Beethoven had never met. Slightly ironic, considering that Kreutzer actually never performed this work. He found it incomprehensible.